Hello, fellow biochemists. My name is Dylan Hughes, and today I'll present to you the inspiring story of the Black American physicist, Herman Russell Branson. Herman Russell Branson was born in Pocahontas, Virginia on August 14, 1914. This is a small town about 300 miles southwest of D.C., and his family eventually moved to Washington, D.C. during the first wave of the Great Migration. Herman Russell Branson attended Paul Dunbar High School, which is a high school within Washington, D.C. It was actually America's first public high school for black students, founded in 1870 by the freed slave William Syphax. It's named after the black American poet Paul Laurence Dunbar, and it is still a primarily African American student body, with a 96% African American student body. Notable alumni of the school include Charles Hamilton Houston, who is the lawyer behind the Brown versus Board of Education that desegregated schools. Also, Robert C. Weaver is an alumni of the school, who is the first black person to be part of a presidential cabinet. Amazingly, with all the great talent that was there at the school, Dunbar was able to graduate valedictorian of his class in 1932. As you can see on the top left-hand side, that is a picture of Paul Laurence Dunbar, the famous poet, and on the bottom side, that's an early picture of the high school. Branson began his undergraduate studies at Pittsburgh University in 1932. He attended the school for only 2 years before transferring to Virginia State College at Pittsburgh HBCU. To give you an idea of Pittsburgh University in Pennsylvania and its racial dynamics, it actually had its first black student attend the school in 1829, so it had begun integrating other races into their student body for quite a while before Branson had gotten there. Anyway, he then eventually finished his degree in physics at Virginia State College at Pittsburgh, which is an HBCU, and he attended from 1934 to 1936. He had graduated summa cum laude with his GPA higher than 3.9. So he continued his great performance that he also had in high school. To give you some more information on Virginia State College, now called Virginia State University, it was actually founded on March 6, 1882, and it was the United States' first fully state-supported four-year institution of higher learning for black Americans. Some notable alumni of the school include Gladys Mae West, class of 1952, who was inducted in the U.S. Air Force Hall of Fame for mathematical models incorporated into GPS. She actually worked alongside the people that would be represented in the film Hidden Figures. Deshauna Barber, class of 2011, is another notable alumni. She's actually a 2016 Miss USA winner. And Reginald Lewis, class of 1965, who in 1993 Forbes was one of the 400 richest Americans, which is really impressive. Again, all of these students are black Americans. Branson completed his PhD in physics in 1939 after only 3 years. The first black student attended the University of Cincinnati in 1870, but Branson in 1939 was the first African American to earn a PhD in physics from the University of Cincinnati. His dissertation contained 3 parts. The first part were the effects of X-rays on tube effects 2 effects. Tube effects 2 effects is also called sludge worm, and it's a transparent worm used in a lot of studies. The construction and operation of an X-ray intensity measuring device was the second part, and the third part was the quantization of mass using the Dirac equation, and it is theoretical physics involving quantum mechanics. In 1939, Branson accepted an associate professor teaching position of mathematics and physics at Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana. He continued there for only 2 years before he gained an assistant professor position of physics and chemistry at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Howard University is an HBCU and perhaps the most famous HBCU because of people like Herman Russell Branson. Herman Russell Branson headed the physics department at Howard University from 1941 all the way to 1968, so a total of 27 years. He gained tenure there at Howard University in 1944, and in 1947 he was named the director of the Office of Naval Research and Atomic Energy Commission projects in physics at Howard University. This position led him to travel the world and across all of Europe, including Germany, France, and England, where he joined labs and conducted research in physics and biophysics with stable and radioactive isotopes. Herman Russell Branson was actually the person to establish the doctoral program there at Howard University for physics. Before Howard Russell Branson began at Howard University, there was no doctoral program. Instead, the physics department was primarily focused on providing the physics education necessary for pre-medical students. So after he began is when they started to foster and truly develop the physics department to where it is today. Herman Russell Branson's research at Howard University included studies focused on sickle cell anemia, biological reaction kinetics using isotope labeling, mass spectral fragmentation, and information theory. During the 1948 to 1949 academic year, Branson accepted a research grant as a National Research Council Senior Fellow to work with Linus Pauling at the California Institute of Technology, or Caltech. He was assigned to work on the structure of proteins. He determined that structures that would fit both the available X-ray crystallography data and a set of chemical restrictions outlined by Pauling. Those two structures were the helices, a tighter coil Pauling determined alpha, and a looser helix called gamma. His mathematical analysis was instrumental to determining the eventual structures that proteins would hold. As you can see here on the left-hand side, the alpha structure is on the left and the gamma structure is on the right. The alpha helix, as you know, is one of the main secondary structures that proteins hold, and on the right, the gamma structure has not been found within living organisms. The figures on the left-hand side are actually from the paper that was eventually published in 1951. Mind you, his research was conducted and finished by 1949, but the paper was not accepted until 1951, and it is speculated that Linus Pauling took a while to agree with his mathematical analysis, and that's why it took so long. As you can see on the paper, there are three authors: Pauling, Corey, and Branson. Corey was a research associate or assistant to Pauling, and eventually he would gain a lot of respect within the scientific community because of his work with Pauling and in proteins. Quite a few people within the scientific community believe that Branson was not given the proper credit that he was due to his discovery of the alpha helix. As you can see on the left-hand side, that is a picture of Linus Pauling. Linus Pauling is a very, very well-known chemist, and he did eventually win the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1954. Later in Pauling's life, in 1988, he took complete credit for the discovery of the alpha helix and did not mention Branson at all. So some people believe that Linus Pauling actually worked to ensure that Branson was not given any credit for the Nobel Prize that Pauling would eventually win in 1954. It is quite revealing that out of the three authors, Corey, Branson, and Pauling, Branson is the only person not to garner a single nomination for the Nobel Prize. Actually, Robert Corey, the paper's other co-author, was nominated once for the Medicine Prize and 3 times for chemistry. As I mentioned previously, Branson stayed at Howard until 1968, which was a total of 27 years. Afterwards, from 1968 to 1970, Branson served as president at Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. Central State University is also an HBCU. In 1970, he served as president at Pennsylvania's Lincoln University, which is also an HBCU, and it is actually the first U.S. college founded for black students. He remained there until his retirement in 1985, so a total of 25 years as president of Lincoln University. In 1969, Branson founded the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education in 1969, and in 1970, he led a group of educators who visited the White House and told President Richard M. Nixon of the growing disparity in financing for higher education, and within 6 months, the Nixon administration had announced plans to raise federal aid by some $30 million. In his lifetime, Branson received a total of 10 honorary degrees, the likes of which are from Brandeis University, Western Michigan University, Shaw College at Detroit, Virginia State University, Drexel University, University of Cincinnati, and Lincoln University. In Branson's lifetime, he published 100 papers in chemistry, physics, mathematics, and biology. He worked to enroll more black students in scientific courses during high school. He also tried to increase the enrollment of African Americans and black students within colleges as well, and he served on numerous scholarship boards. Branson passed away at the age of 80. At the time, he was living in Silver Spring, Maryland, and the cause of his death was heart failure. Every year, at the meeting of the American Crystallographic Association, a poster prize called the Pauling Branson Award is given to honor his legacy as a great crystallographer and one of the first African Americans to make crystallography the focus of their studies. Both of Branson's children were medical doctors. His son, Herman Edward Branson, was a pathologist, and his daughter, Coraline Gertrude Carr, was an infectious disease expert. And both of them graduated from Howard University Medical School. Herman Russell Branson also has a granddaughter named Danielle Ramdoth, and she gained a PhD in mathematics from Duke University and is currently the Senior Associate Dean of Academic Engagement at Williams College. I just want to thank you all for listening and learning about another great Black American scientist and physicist. I did not know anything about his studies at all or his life, so to learn that a Black American contributed to finding about the alpha helix is really, really inspiring to me, and I hope that people continue to spread his word and his legacy so that more people know of his accomplishments.